Hey guys, Matthew here, and welcome to the next video of my boss killing series. So today we're going to be looking at the next encounter for the Feared, which is going to be Atziri. Now, Atziri is also a quite outdated boss, but it does hold up, especially with Maven on the encounter itself. Alright, first off though, let's talk about how to go about acquiring these fragments for the encounter itself. So you need 4 of these mortal fragments, and you are going to get these from killing the normal Atziri, right? When you kill normal Atziris, there's a chance you get one of these. Now, in terms of getting the normal Atziri fragments, the 2 main methods are going to be Vaal side areas. When you clear a Vaal side area at the very end and you click on the little thingy, the chest or whatever, there's a chance to get one of those. Actually, it's pretty much guaranteed. So that's the main way, and the other way is going to be to corrupt your maps. When you corrupt the map, right, with a Vaal orb, when you kill the boss, there's a chance that it drops one of these fragments. That being said, there's a lot of other ways nowadays to get both the Uber Atziri and regular Atziri fragments because of how old they are. They've been implemented in so many different mechanics. For example, Harvest, allowing you to sacrifice maps for fragments, can give you these. For example, you know, bind them with Ritual Favor. There's a lot of ways to get these fragments, and of course, you can buy them from other players. All right, now let's talk about Atziri herself and then the loot from the fight. So Atziri, it's going to be the exact same. The entirety of the encounter is the exact same in the regular and in the Uber version. The only difference is the amount of HP and damage that she does. That's really it. So she has a spear throw, right? Where she throws a spear, does physical damage. It does a ton of damage. If you get hit by that, you're probably dead if you're playing my build. So it's kind of annoying. Now, she also has the empowered spear throw. This one can shotgun, but it typically does not that much damage, so you can actually tank these. A flame blast, where she just channels a flame blast on the ground. The empowered one, where she does 2 of them, and then you have to go in the outskirts of the arena. This does, like, you're never going to tank this. There's only a few builds in the entire game that can tank this. And the storm call, same situation. She just, you know, calls a bunch of storm calls, and you got to walk out of them. Pretty easy. The empowered storm call, these can actually catch you off guard if you get unlucky, but most of the time they're pretty easy to dodge. You have a decent amount of time to just walk out of them. That's really it, right? That is really it. So it's not too much to know of, and there's not too much danger as long as you're paying attention to what's under your feet. Now, in terms of the rewards for the regular Atziri, you have the Atziri's Promise, a very, very good flask. The problem with this flask, however, is that it's super common. So it's worthless. But if you get a good roll, especially on the elemental damage, right, a 15% is actually quite expensive. Typically, one of these flasks is going to be like a chaos or 2. 15% roll is going to be like 40 chaos. So it's something that's very common for people to flip, but it's also very good to pay attention to the rolls. Next, she also has Atziri Steps, also something you want to pay attention to the roll, the amount of life, and the spell dodge. If you get a 16 and like 70 life, it's going to be worth like a lot more than just a regular pair. These are actually always pretty expensive in an early league scenario because of how good they are. They're really good boots for early league. Unfortunately, they don't offer any resistances, but the spell dodge, the good move speed, the high life, and the 700 plus evasion makes it a very solid pair of boots. All right, next you also have the heavy belt, and so the heavy belt is actually quite bad-ish. It kind of depends. There's many different variations. Sometimes, depending on the meta, some of them are expensive, so you want to pay attention to which one you have. You know, there's one for physical, fire, cold, and lightning. So yeah, sometimes some of them are expensive, or at least decent. Doriani's Catalyst used to be crazy good. Unfortunately, as the years went on, it just lost its oomph, I guess. So many things are better than Doriani's Catalyst. So it is one of the rarer drops that she drops anyways. Normal Atziri, that is. Yeah, it used to be like an Exalt on the League Start. Now it's not really all that hype. Few chaos. The rolls do matter, however. The attacks, there's basically 2 different ways to look at it. You can look at it from a physical standpoint, where you want high fizz and high attack speed. You can look at it from a caster standpoint, where you want high cast speed and high elemental damage. The global crit chance is like kind of whatever. Next, you also have, no, that's about it for the normal Atziri. There's also the Triumvirate Ring, the new ring, but that's not really worth anything. From the Uber Atziri, there's Atziri's Acuities. Very, very good gloves. Typically, I believe the rarest of all of her drops. And also the most expensive one. It's also lost a bit of its oomph in the lately, really. I mean, sure, it's been nerfed, but that was like a million years ago, back when it would give you instant health. So these legacy ones are absolutely insane in standard. But yeah, pretty good pair of gloves. I mean, Vaal Pact, if you've dealt a crit recently, good life, an insane amount of intelligence. Typically, the reason why a lot of people use these actually. Melee builds wanting that 80 intelligence is huge, and a little bit of crit, plus a solid amount of armor. Look at that, up to 800 armor nearly. It's really, really pretty decent. All right, next we have the Vaal Axe. Also a great item, unfortunately been nerfed, no longer what it used to be. Still though, pretty decent in a League Start scenario. It's one of the best weapons you can get for cheap as a melee build that can really like make your build push it to the next level, so you can start doing harder content until you get a really good crafted weapon. So still a pretty high amount of damage. And yeah, pretty good axe. The +2 weapon range is also super nice for things like Cyclone, bleeding on hit, maim. Yeah, it's pretty good. But the reason why it's really cheap nowadays is because of the Last One Standing, which is a super common divination card, which is like very, very cheap, like 3-4 chaos, which means that, you know, this axe just can't be worth what it used to be. When I remember in the early days, Atziri's disfavor could be something like 10 exalts. Atziri's acuity could be something like 40 exalts. But yeah, those are a long time ago. Next, we have the Vertex, which is the most common of all of her drops. Interesting helmet, actually quite good for a lot of builds like AD Contagion and whatnot. So pretty popular helmet in a League Start scenario. Typically going to be, most of your money is going to be coming from this and then maps. I'll talk about that in a second. The rolls do matter, so you want to pay attention to that. The amount of evasion, energy shield, and of course chaos resistance all matter. And then finally, you have Atziri Splendor on top of the Triumvirate Ring, which we won't really talk about, or the new staff that she drops, also pretty garbage. But in terms of the armor, there's actually a lot of different variants. Now, they just added this patch in 3.14, +1 level of all Vaal skill jumps, which kind of like made these a little bit more usable, but even to this day, they're just not great. I mean, they don't really offer anything that any sort of influenced item would, right? Sure, it's good life and good res, but like, what else, right? +1 to Vaal skill jumps is just not quite gonna cut it. But you do want to pay attention because some of the variants are actually a lot more expensive than others in a League Start scenario, all right? Because some of them have evasion, some armor, some energy shields, some hybrid, so you do want to pay attention to that. That's pretty much it in terms of the actual loot that you can get from her. But one thing that's interesting though about this Uber Atziri's fight is that it is a very high level zone. It is a zone that is item level 80, right? Which means I think T13, T14, I can't quite remember. What that means is that you're going to be dropping a lot of high tier maps from this place. And every single monster in the zone is at least magic or rare rarity. So there's a lot of loot to be had. A lot of, if you're still doing Chaos Recipe in an early League Start scenario, it's a great place to come. Tons of jewelry drops, for example. Yeah, it's a pretty good place to farm maps as well. One thing to note, however, is that if you're thinking of getting like 4 Watchstones in one region, right? Rushing your 4 corners and then putting them all into one of the corners just to start dropping red maps, even if you yourself have only completed white maps, it's not gonna work. This zone does respect the Atlas rules, which means you have to at least have completed a single T14 map at some point in order to be able to enable the ability to drop T14 maps. So something that's very important to note. So before you start farming Uber Atziri, make sure that you've at least completed like a T11, 12, 13, 14, so that you can actually start dropping these higher tier maps, because that's going to be where a lot of your money is going to be coming from. Okay, let's get right into the actual clear for my build. So of course, we're rocking the same 5-link setup, the Freezing Pulse for the clear, and then the swap of Ice Spear. One thing that you can do, because this is actually a fairly easy and small area to clear, is to swap in Atziri's Promise. There's a lot of constructs in this place, which are the little, I don't know what to call them, that shoot little projectiles that I'll show you guys, and they deal physical and chaos damage. So having chaos resistance is going to make it a lot safer to clear, because they can pretty much off screen you, and you can get shotgunned by like a pack of them. So it's kind of annoying. I'm not going to worry too much about it. And yeah, let's go ahead and do that. These are the constructs that I was talking about, the spitting monsters. So there's none of them here. See if we can find some. These guys are right there that are shooting projectiles, right? These guys shoot chaos projectiles, which are quite deadly. So again, what I was talking about with the maps, right? A lot of money is going to be coming from map drops when you are clearing this zone, which is why if your build is really good at clearing, I would actually recommend full clearing this. There's no reason not to. It's all magic and rare monsters. It's really good XP if you don't die, right? Very, very good XP as well, because it's item level 80 and all the monsters are magic and above. Okay, so the first boss that we are going to encounter is actually very easy to deal with. It's the exact same boss that you fought in Act 2. The only difference is that there's two of them, and when one of them died, the other is going to become enraged. So it's going to be like faster, pretty much. So what we're going to do is we're just going to debuff it, and we're pretty much going to one-tap them. They're pretty squishy. Even on this sort of setup, it's not all that crazy damage that you need. As you can see, these guys are getting absolutely demolished. Here we go. Here comes the second one. He's probably going to be able to go down after he does this phase of ads. Now he's going to be enraged when he comes back up, so you want to pay attention to that. Make sure he doesn't slam you on top of your head or something like that. But as you can see, very, very easy to deal with. The second bosses, however, the trio, is actually the harder part to deal with from this entire fight, even harder than Atziri herself, depending on your build. This build doesn't struggle with it at all because you can just put your totems down and run away. This build definitely struggles a lot more with Atziri herself because of the reflects, because of the fact that we are totem builds, and totems are not considered minions and they're not considered you. They're just considered totems, which is very unfortunate because it makes it this fight significantly harder. Again, though, with the map drops, you can see huge, right? Just these two maps would nearly pay for the entirety of this set in a league start scenario, which is massive. Okay, so one thing to note about the second boss is that you really have to kill this lady first, because she does a rain of arrows from the sky that will literally one-shot you. I've seen people with 20k ES get one-shotted by this. It does an insane amount of damage, so you want to kill her first. One thing to note about these guys is that when you kill one of them, the other are going to become enraged, and you know, they're going to become harder and harder. But again, they're very squishy. This is pretty outdated content. It shouldn't be too hard. So we're going to walk up, debuff, and then just let our totems do the job. As you can see, the boss is basically dead, so that's one down. Let's go ahead and take care of the other ones as well. So that should be two down in just a couple seconds here. Oh, I'm actually not debuffing them properly. Here we are. And there you go. The last guy is enraged as well. Again, though, as a totem build, not too hard to deal with because I could just put my totems down and run away. So one thing to note for these guys is that obviously as the arena goes on, or as the fight goes on, the arena is going to become more and more scuffed with this smoke, which does, I believe, physical damage over time. Another thing to note about these guys is that one of them does fire damage, which is this guy. He will ignite you if he actually hits you, so you definitely don't want to let him do that. One of the other guys will do a spin, and it's going to actually hit you with some bleed and corrupted blood, so you definitely want a bleed immunity flask for this boss fight, unless you literally one-shot them. And if you can get an ignite immunity flask, that being said, that's not really necessary. So long as you have decent fire resistance, you know, ignite doesn't do too much damage. I'm not sure why, but somehow my lightning resistance is... Okay, yeah, I was cursed, that's why. I was like, what? Alright, go back to Freezing Pulse, and we're going to make our way towards Atziri herself, which is where the real struggle is going to come. If you intend to play this build, right, at this budget, and be able to do Uber Atziri, you better not die before the fight. You want to have as many portals as humanly possible. Best is to have all 6 of them for the fight, because you are going to need them. So unfortunately, as I say that, I jinxed myself and I died, which means I only have 5 portal left to deal with Atziri. Now you might be like, why, Matt? Is it really that big of a deal? Oh yes it is. The reflect is going to make the fight so goddamn hard. I'll talk about a little tip that you can do in order to prevent you know, this from being too big of a deal. What I would recommend when you get to Atziri herself is to drop your cast on death, because you really don't want to get back into this arena after you die. You don't want to be spawning right in the middle of a bunch of storm calls and stuff. So put your portal out, your cast on death out, swap back to your ice spear. Okay, so for most builds in the game, it's actually going to be very easy to deal with this boss because of this very cool ring called Sibyl's Lament. Sibyl's Lament is going to give you 80% reduced reflected damage taken, or 80% reduced reflected physical damage taken, depending on which ring slot you put it in. So I'm a you know, I'm an elemental build, I'm a cold build, so I would put it in my left ring slot, right? So I would put it right here, and then I would basically be immune to reflect if I pair it up with this Soul of Bugle, which gives you 25% reduced reflected damage for both physical and elemental. So 25 plus 80, we are completely reflect immune. Now here's the problem. Totems are not considered you, and they're not considered minions. So they just die over and over and over again, which is what makes this fight so incredibly hard if your damage kind of sucks like mine does, right? I'm on a 5 link, very, very entry-level gear, you know, super, super budget, not even quality on most of my gear. It's pretty bad. So we're going to have to do our best. In the split phase, it's going to be very important that we choose a corner which is the furthest, or very, like, at least not close to the reflect boss, the one that's holding a mirror. I'll showcase that in a second, because otherwise you're not going to have a good time. And we're already not going to have a good time, especially because Maven already makes this fight harder than it has to be. So here we are with a Storm Call. Now this is basically like an, I guess you could say in-between phase where these little ads are going to spawn in the corners. Essentially, if the ads get to her, she heals. That being said, this is super outdated content. You should be able to one-shot these no problem, and therefore she should never heal from that. Okay, I'm a little bit scared, but we'll see how this goes. Putting out all my totems, making sure that I debuff the boss. It's going to be super, super important here. Okay, here we go with the split phase. So we're going to make sure that we don't hit the one with a mirror. So this is the one with a mirror. Yep, get away from that. No, thanks. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is already starting to be hard. That being said, I'm going to let my totems do as much damage as possible before I respawn. So that in that way, I can kind of cheat my way through the phase a little bit. As you can see here, look at that. My totems did the job. This is why it's important to have all your portals, because your totems are just going to keep killing her, even if you're dead. Which means when you come back out, look at that. Look at that. We don't have to deal with any of the actual ad phase. We are good to go. So we're basically abusing portals. You don't typically have to do this if you have a lot of damage, but because your totems are instantly killing themselves when you're alive, they don't instantly kill themselves when you're dead, which is kind of like the trick about this. You are going to need to portal abuse until you get a little bit more damage, right? For example, if I just had the helmet, right? If I just had the helmet that makes me immune or unaffected by curses, I'm talking about Verity's Vaal, the Maven helmet, that is. If I just had that, just that by itself, and I could take advantage of my own curses on myself, I would have plenty of damage. All right, so here we go. Put our totems down, and then we are going to run away. Oh, my totems are all dead. Okay, make sure we spawn the totems, and then let the totems do their job. Doesn't matter if I died. My totems are absolutely clutching this one. That being said, I only have 2 of them here, so very little damage, but we should be able to get through the phase no problem. Portal abusing 101, baby. That's what you have to do in a league start scenario where your damage sucks and you want to do content that you shouldn't be doing. All right, here we go again with another phase. Unfortunately, though, one of the problems, if you want to call it that, if you die and you portal abuse, is that she does more of these minion phases. She typically only does 1 or 2 of these in a regular fight where you just own her. But unfortunately, when your damage is very low and you have to portal abuse, she does a lot more of these healing phases, which is super annoying. But again, look, we're doing content, which is some of the hardest in the game, with Maven, with all that good stuff. With gear that is absolutely tremendously bad and budget. So, you know, we're going to have to abuse some mechanics here and there. All right, here we go with the Empowered Storm Call. You want to just walk out of those. They're pretty slow, right? Like I said. So it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Okay, here we go. Again, we're going to put all our totems down. Okay, try not to die instantly. Make sure that if you do die, your totems are down at least. Unfortunately, my totems were not down this time around because they died to the Flame Blast. So one thing that I would recommend, essentially, is to put your totems away from you so that when the fight starts, either the Atziri is going to Flame Blast all of your totems, which means you can just put them back down, or she's going to target you, which means you can walk out of it and your totems are just going to keep doing damage, which is good. Okay, that was pretty scuffed start right there. Yo, can you stop spearing me, goddammit? Unfortunately, I do have totems, which means she should die. I hope anyways. my totems are immune, right? They are immune while I'm dead, but they do have a timer. So here we are again. That should be the last of the phases, and I'm also on my last portal, so it's getting pretty sketchy here. But that should be all she wrote after this. That was 4 of the mirror phases. I believe there's 4 of them. No matter if you one-shot her or if you take 3 million years to kill her. So I'm not too sad about that. Portal abusing 101. Again, though, with a little bit more damage, that wouldn't be required, but it's a nice strategy if you're trying to do content, which you just can't do. You can actually do this with the invitations as well. You can do this with just about any bosses. If your totems are alive, even if you're dead, they're actually immune. So here we go. And that's all she wrote. Definitely a hard boss to do with this build because your totems keep killing themselves. Really hard to deal with this boss. But as you can see, so long as I've 4 portals, right? There's 4 phases where she's gonna do the mirror stuff. I have 6 portals. If I don't die in the rest of the map because I'm, you know, playing properly and paying attention, then I should have enough portals to portal abuse the entirety of the boss fight. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. Now this time I did die, right? While I was actually talking, while I was clearing. So because I died, I was only able to do it with the last portal. But hey, the last portal is good enough because I got it done. And now that enables me to do Uber Elder, and then I can actually do the Feared, right? On a setup which is disgustingly cheap. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Before I go, as always, I want to say a massive thank you to my supporters: Jordan, Fruitfly, Thomas, Naroth, Master, Tim, Nick, Jekoff, Flame Scorpion, Reese, Emil, Road to Millions, Alex, Brandon, Don, Joseph, welcome back, Panda, Atticus, Scott, Bard, Grimoire, Johnny, Ronald, Kevin, Mercury, and Bizen, as well as, of course, anybody else who's supported me in the past, anybody else who wishes to remain anonymous. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you guys in the next guide. Peace.